Hey guys, Dibsinator here, and as you can tell, I'm going to be reviewing the Bee Movie. So let's first talk about this movie. This movie came out all the way back in 2007, and I do remember actually seeing this movie in theaters. I was only 5, but I did have a brief memory of this movie, and I actually really liked it back then. But then again, opinions do change, trust me. There's been some horrible shows that I liked as a kid, but I just don't like now. Fanboy and Chum Chum. But well, I've seen some people like this movie, I've seen some people love this movie, and I've seen some people that are clinically addicted to this movie. I'm looking at you, Matt. But there's been some just beautiful and great masterpieces that exploded from the meme world, such as the entire Bee Movie, but every time it says Bee, the movie gets faster.
Well, Adam, today we are men. We are Bee Men. Amen. Hallelujah.
The Bee Movie trailer, but every noun is replaced with bee and ear rape.
For thousands of years, have misunderstood them and feared them. Now, one in a next is gonna change everything. Stand back.
And let's not forget the classic video by Mr. Bighead. Better be reacting to this video. Made the signature Bee Movie in Morse code. This is 7.5 hours long. Like, who has time for that? Oh, wait, no. I do. I have no social life. Exposed. But let's actually take a serious review of this movie. And without further ado, let's start reviewing DreamWorks. So this movie starts off with the classic speech at the beginning. And if you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about. So I can introduce to our main character in this movie, Barry B. Benson, who is played by Jerry Seinfeld. And let's be quite honest, this movie wouldn't be half as popular if it wasn't for Seinfeld. He marketed himself really well for this movie, and when you see this movie, you only think of Seinfeld, so props to him. Anyways, Barry then goes on and performs his daily task. Can we just please take a moment out of our lives and appreciate how beautiful this photo is? Just look at it! Alright, let's just get back to reviewing this movie. So after Barry's done doing his daily tasks, we get to listen to this.
Barry, why don't you use the stairs? Your father paid good money for those.
Sorry, I'm excited.
Here's the graduate. We're very proud of you, son. And a perfect report card. All B's.
Yeah, trust me. There's going to be a lot of bad puns in this movie. So we soon get introduced to Barry's best friend, Adam Flayman, who is played by Matthew Broderick. And let's be perfectly honest, Matthew's performance in this movie wasn't that bad, but I just think Adam was a really forgettable character in this movie. I don't know, he just wasn't that bad of a character, but he just isn't that memorable. So apparently, the two are graduating from Bee's school. Okay, the place doesn't have a name, but I'm just going to refer to Bee's school. So Barry and Adam are graduating from Bee's school, and they're excited to finally become men. They soon find out that they're going to be working at the Hunix Industries. So, I'm not going to explain everything that happens in this whole Hunix orientation scene, but to be honest, the creators were actually thinking outside the box in this scene. For example, they describe how honey is made, and even some of the jobs are really wacky, which is what makes the scene really good. One job includes picking up a little scrap of honey that hangs after you pour it. That's really creative. I really like that kind of ideas in this movie. Barry and Adam eventually find out that whatever job they pick, they will be forced to stay at the job for the rest of their life and never have a day off. And unlike most of the bees, Barry does not like the idea that he's going to be worked to death for the rest of his life. Barry then believes that things just work too well around here, and we get a funny joke involving every single car missing Barry and Adam. We then see the pollen jock, or basically the bee military, and Barry becomes fascinated by this. Later that night, we see Barry's parents talking about Hunix, and we get even more bad puns. Just listen yourself.
Oh, Barry, you are so funny sometimes.
I'm not trying to be funny.
You're not funny. You're going into honey.
Haha, get it? Seinfeld? Barry B. Seinfeld?
K-Mac, just please leave.
Okay.
The next day, Barry decides to join the military, and we get a really good flying scene. I don't know, it's just something DreamWorks is good at. Just the motion scenes such as flying, it just really works for DreamWorks. They eventually land on a tennis court, but because the balls have a yellowish green color, they attract the bees, and Barry B gets stuck on one, and we get a really cool scene involving Barry being hit back and forth by a tennis ball. It ends with the guy hitting the ball over the fence, and Barry eventually ends up stuck inside a car for some odd reason, even though somehow they don't end up in an accident. Rather than having the scene end up like Turbo, he finds a way inside the car, and we get a funny scene involving the family flipping out over the bee. He eventually finds a way out, but it soon starts to rain, and now Barry is screwed. After a bit of flying, he eventually crashes and lands into an apartment. After a bit of panicking, he realizes that he is stuck, and we get introduced to Ken, voiced by Joe Swanson, Patrick Warburton, and we get introduced to Vanessa Bloom, played by Renee Zellweger. Barry starts flying towards the light, and then falls into some guacamole. Right when someone's about to eat him, Ken screams, "Beast!" The whole crowd freaks out, and right when Ken is about to kill him, Vanessa stops him, and she brings Barry outside the house. The next morning, Barry decides to go back inside the house because Vanessa saved his life, and after a bit of hiding, he eventually says,
You like jazz?
and Vanessa freaks out. She contemplates whether she's dreaming or not, but she still decides to talk to him. She eventually stabs herself with a fork to see if she's dreaming, and she soon realizes that this is her reality. After a huge conversation, they then decide to eat together. She then explains that she's a florist, and after a funny scene from the light bulb guy, Barry decides to go back in the hive and explain all the experiences to Adam. Adam freaks out and tries to explain that he is a bee, and he can only do bee stuff. We then get a dream from Barry, and now I'll just show you what happens.
We're still here, Barry.
I told you not to yell at him. He doesn't respond when you yell at him.
Then why are you yelling at me?
Because you don't listen.
I'm not listening to this.
Sorry, Mom, I've got to go.
Barry then decides to go out of the hive again and go to the store with Vanessa. He then sees honey and gets furious about this because bees put so much work into honey and then the humans just steal it and sell it for money. Barry then goes up to a human and the two have a sword fight. Well, kind of. Eventually, Barry has him surrender and finds out that honey comes from the honey farms. We get another great flying scene. I just don't know about you, but DreamWorks is just great at doing motion, and this movie perfects it. Anyways, he eventually lands into a truck window, and we get introduced to a mosquito played by Chris Rock. And I gotta say, I really love Chris Rock's performance in this movie. I just thought he had a lot of fun lines in this movie, and he was just a great character. So eventually, the driver turns on the windshield wipers, and it wipes out all the bugs. Barry somehow falls inside the truck, and he is with the Chris Rock mosquito. They then have a conversation about each other, but Chris Rock leaves after he sees a truck full of blood, and this blood truck has a ton of mosquitoes on it, so it worked out well for him. Barry then eventually ends up in the honey farm, and he witnesses the horror of what exactly they do to bees in the honey farm. So you know what he does? He sues the human race! It then cuts to B. Larry King, voiced by who else but Larry King. The scene was surprisingly funny, and I'll just show it to you, but just why it's funny.
Don't forget, tomorrow night on Be Larry King, we're going to have 3 former queens, all right here in our studio, discussing their new book, Classy Ladies, out this week on Hexagon. Tonight we're talking to Barry Benson. Did you ever think, I'm just a kid from the hive, I can't do this?
Larry, bees have never been afraid to change the world. I mean, what about B. Columbus? B. Gandhi? B. Jesus?
Oh, where I'm from, you wouldn't think of suing humans. We were thinking more like stickball, candy stores.
How old are you?
Well, I want you to know that the entire bee community is supporting you in this case, which is certain to be the trial of the bee century.
Thank you, Larry. You know they have a Larry King in the human world, too.
It's a common name. Next week on Be Larry King...
No, I mean, he looks like you, and he has a show with suspenders and different colored dots behind him.
Next week on Be Larry
That
King...
old guy glasses, and there's quotes along the bottom from the guest you're watching, even though you just heard him.
Bear Week next week. They're scary, they're hairy, and they're here live.
Always leans forward, pointy shoulders, squinty eyes, very Jewish.
So meanwhile, Vanessa and Ken are working at the flower store, and we see Barry B trying to figure out how he's going to win this lawsuit. Ken and Barry then meet each other, and Vanessa then just kicks Ken, and we get a funny line from Ken.
Why is yogurt night so difficult?
So Barry and Adam are in court, and we get introduced to the team human race, led by Flaming Cat, Lawton T. Montgomery, who is voiced by John Goodman. We then get introduced to Judge Bumbleton, and you won't believe who voices this character. Do you want to know who voices this character? Oprah! Freaking Oprah Winfrey is a part of this meme festival. Oh, Oprah Winfrey! I'm done.
Yep. Oh, okay. He's gone. In that case, I guess I'll talk to you guys about the episode of, Drake and Josh, where they ran over Oprah, because that fits with this review and all.
Finally, okay, let's just finish this review. Keymac? I thought I told you to leave!
But Keymac memes.
Yeah, that's why you should leave.
Okay, I'll just hang up then.
Finally, he's gone. Let's continue with this review.
No, I'm not.
What? You're not going?
No, I'll go.
Okay, just go.
Keymac memes.
Okay then, so let's just continue on. So the honey industry believes that it's a man's right to profit off of nature, while Barry believes that humans shouldn't be stealing their honey. Barry then starts off with the owner of honey farms. Barry is disturbed by the fact that they use a bear as their jar, because bears are murderous creatures. He even brings a live bear. Second witness is Mr. Sting. Get it? It's Mr. Sting? Okay, I gotta stop turning into Keymac. It's disturbing that he uses a bee's action for a silly say show, and Mr. Sting isn't his actual name, so that's a major shocker. We then meet Mr. Leota, who has an easy temper, and of course, he easily snaps out like crazy, which only makes him look stupid. So, Vanessa and Barry decide to have dinner together, when eventually Ken comes over and he is angry. He is jealous that a bee is stealing his girl, so he attempts to kill him, and he fails. So after that, Vanessa gets mad at Ken, and we get a funny mental breakdown from Ken.
And for your information, I prefer sugar-free, artificial sweeteners made by man!
So the next day, they are in court, and Barry B comes to the stand. Montgomery tries to piss him off, and this works for him as Adam gets so mad, he stings him in the butt. We get a dramatic reaction from Montgomery, and Adam ends up almost dead. They then think the case is over until they soon realize that they have the smoker. They bring it to court, they show what the smoker is capable of, and after they see what it really is, this leads to a bee's victory. So you think the bees would finally get their rights and everyone lives happily ever after? Well, not entirely. You see, because the bees have so much honey, they stop pollinating flowers, and so they stop producing honey. Because of this, all the plants die out, and there's no more plants left, which means Vanessa's business shuts down. And also, the planet's kind of doomed too. That's kind of not really been said. Vanessa is then leaving to go in a taxi cab so that she can get to the airport to see the grand finale of the Tournament of Roses parade. Vanessa then leaves, but Bear comes up with the idea to steal the roses so the bees can finally pollinate again and save the world, basically. They are somehow able to steal a car full of roses, and they end up taking it back on the plane somehow. They're on the way back, and since there's bad weather, they'll have a few hours delay. But because of this, they're not going to be able to pollinate the flowers in time, so what does Barry do? He sneaks to the pilot's cabin, and once the pilots see him, they freak out, and Barry just explains what basically happens because of this.
What happened here?
I tried to talk to them, but then there was a dustbuster, a toupee, a life raft exploded. Now one's bald, one's in a boat, and they're both unconscious.
Well, yeah. Since neither of them have any flight experience, they're kind of screwed. So they end up in a lightning storm, and even though lightning strikes the plane, they're still perfectly fine. Makes sense. They then call up all the bees, and then they hold the plane, while a ton of other bees create a huge flower to attract the plane. And somehow this works, and they successfully land the plane. So this movie ends with the bees ending up pollinating all the flowers, and Vanessa gets her job back, and Barry and the mosquito end up becoming lawyers. And not only does Barry B become a lawyer, he becomes a pollen jock too. And they all live happily ever after. The end. Well, now since the movie's over, let's talk about what I liked and disliked about this movie. Let's first talk about the animation. I felt the bugs are drawn out really well, but as for the humans, they were not that done well. I understand that doing CGI animation makes animated humans a lot harder, but jeeves, the design of these humans are really, really, really ugly sometimes. As for the jokes, well, it was a mixed bag. There's some great jokes in this movie, but then there was the puns. Dear God, why? What's with these puns? They're not funny. Then there's the flying scenes. They're actually one of the biggest highlights of this movie. It was outstanding. It almost made me feel as if I was flying with the movie. As for the characters, I really liked most of them. While I didn't really like Matthew Broderick's performance with Adam, some of my favorite characters included Barry B, Ken, and a mosquito played by Chris Rock. Those characters are really funny. Heck, I even like some of the side characters such as Montgomery or that bee general. And last but not least, the story. I really liked about how the story wasn't very predictable, and each plot blended in with the next plot. I was thinking in the beginning that because Barry B thought differently than most bees, it might have been about how he was going to be different than most bees and about how people are just sometimes different. But then he eventually meets Vanessa. Then I was thinking it was going to be about how he shouldn't judge our relationships, even if it's a bee and a human. But then they go into about how humans are stealing the bees' resources, and I was thinking, well, this movie's going to be about how everybody's equal, including bees. But then because bees are equal, they don't need to pollinate the flowers, and this leaves all the plants dying, and then it becomes about how you shouldn't disrupt the balance of nature. I love that! The movie did a great job about not being predictable. So let's give this a score. In case you don't know how I grade a movie, I give it from a scale of 0 to 100. If a movie gets 100, it's probably one of the best movies of all time. And if it gets between a 90 and a 99, the movie is fantastic. If it gets between an 80 and an 89, it means this movie is pretty good. If it gets between a 70 and a 79, it means this movie is decent and alright. If it gets a 60 through 69, it means this movie is pretty bad. And if it gets a 50 through 59, it means this movie is pretty terrible. And if it gets below 50, well, this movie is beyond terrible. It's an abomination that no human should ever witness. And before we finish, there's just one odd thing I'd like to mention. Barry and Vanessa are kind of like a couple. The definition of bestiality is when a human loves an animal a bit too much. Bestiality? Bestiality? That's it. I've just confirmed it. The B movie actually promotes bestiality, which is why I'm giving this B movie a 0. Nah, I'm just kidding. I felt this movie was actually pretty good. It had its problems, but I think this is a movie you should definitely check out if you haven't already. It's got good jokes, the story is not that predictable, and it's got good characters. It's just a fun movie. So, I'm giving the B movie an 86. What movie should I review next?
Plan B!
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!